The singing athlete.
The vagus nerve. It is a fascinating nerve. It controls everything in your larynx. It controls your constrictors of your throat. It controls a part of your diaphragm. The other large things it does is it's your anti-inflammatory nerve. So if you feel like you're getting sick, you need to do some vagus nerve work and see if that you can fight it off with that. It is also your anti-anxiety nerve. So it is the thing that keeps your heart rate calm. So if you were a person who gets palpitations or finds your heart rate racing, start to get really sweaty before you perform, cold hands, cold feet, that's all a vagus nerve issue. And there are ways you can talk to the nerve. So I'm just gonna, in this little section, show you 5 options. There are more, but this will just be something to start with. So the first, we're gonna start with the ears. So there is this little part of your ear here. It's called the cymba, like symbol, not like the Lion King, right in here, C-Y-M-B-A, and it's that thing. So I'm just gonna take my hand down and put it back. It's this area right there. It's over this little ridge right there. And that is where, when they're doing electrical stimulation of the vagus nerve, they do it. So you can do self work there just by taking your finger there and just making a little circle in it. And there's different levels, layers in the body, so you can go very gently in that area and see how that feels, where you're just kind of on the skin. And you can press in a little deeper and see what that feels like and make some circles in there. So I feel different stuff in myself just doing those different layers. And you can check your other side, so I'll turn so you can see it. So it's this little thing right in there. And then you just do the same stuff. So you start with a light circle. And you can press in a little deeper and see how you respond to that. So what you're trying to check with these drills is your heart rate, your breathing, and your sort of emotional response to what's happening. So it also goes to the posterior ear canal. So you take your finger this way with the fingernail facing me, and you put your finger into the ear, and you press into the back wall of the canal. And you're making a circle again. And you can go light, or you can go stronger. Just seeing what the response is like. On the other side, same thing, take your hand there. Go into the ear canal, you push into the back of the canal. And we're making that same circle both ways and different levels of pressure, seeing what you respond to. And the other thing that is used for this a lot is vibration. So if you have a Z-Vibe, electric toothbrush, whatever you got, you can turn it on. So when I am doing my Simba, I will take this little square part right there and put it right into there. And I feel an immediate relaxation response when I do that. So I can feel my breath changing as I vibrate that part of my ear. I'll do the other side. And for me, there's less change on this side, but you might be different. So if I were doing this drill, I would do my left ear because that's where I feel the calming response for myself. And then you can put it in your ear. So I usually use the handle part when I do this because this can be a little rough on the ear. So I stick it in and I push into the posterior wall. And for me, that feels great. It feels very relaxing. And I get kind of no response on that side. So that's worth knowing about yourself. Now, if you don't have gear, you also can just be doing tapping on your ears in the back here. How rapidly can you tap? That will do some of the same effect. You can also pull on your ear lobes. So you can take an ear. So for me, my left is giving me the response. So I could pull down and out on that. I could just hold that. I could sing like that. What does that feel like? I can also grab onto the back here and pull it back and out. Which for me feels like a better drill for that. And so anytime you are moving the ears, if you know where those two targets are and you think about some stretch in the skin there, that can be very useful. So if you want to get more advanced, there's what's called a TENS unit, T-E-N-S, that has electricity, and they sell ear clips. So you can just type in ear clips, TENS unit, you'll see them, and you just clip it onto the back of your ear, and you put in a very low electrical stimulus on that. And that's a version of what they do in studies for this. So this vagus nerve stimulation is being used for anti-anxiety, anti-depression. It's being used in any kind of autoimmune conditions, stuff like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, anything like that seems to be responding to this kind of treatment. So you can do a self version of it just to see how your anxiety responds. So that's number one, is the ear. Number two, we're going to do the back of the skull. So I'm going to turn so you can see. So it's this area right here. So what happens in your face is that the front 2/3 to half of your face is the trigeminal nerve. You see me do sometimes 1, 2, 3. That's tests for your trigeminal nerve. The back of the skull is more complicated. It's the vagus nerve. It's the hypoglossal nerve, which controls your tongue. And then it's C2 and C3. So there's a few things going on back there, but the vagus is innervating. It's feeding what's known as your cranial meninges, which are like, it's like a membrane around your brain. And some of it goes to the skin. So what we're gonna do is move our skin back there. So I'm gonna turn and I'm gonna get my hand on my left side and I'm gonna move in little compass points here. So I'm moving side to side, up and down, and in diagonals. I'm seeing what feels sticky. So my options are either to push into the stickiness or to spread out the stickiness. So I'm a little sticky down, so I'm gonna push down. And while I do that, I'm gonna see what happens to my saliva. So I'm getting immediate more saliva into my mouth. My speaking voice quality is changing a little bit. When I pull it up, I get a dry mouth and my larynx raises. I can feel that it's going higher now. I push it back down and then my speaking voice changes a bit. So for me, this is the direction I need to go in. I might need to go side to side. I can try that. I go in. That's giving me a dry mouth. I'm raising my larynx. I'm gonna pull that way. My larynx is immediately dropping. I'm getting more saliva in my mouth. So I could try going down and out. And that feels really good for me. It feels really, really nice. Right side, do the same tests. So I'm seeing where I'm sticky. This side's actually better. It's not really particularly sticky anywhere, but I'll pull it up. A little bit of dry mouth, not as bad as on my left. And still a little better pushing down, but not as dramatic. Dry. Much better there. So I can go down and in on that. And I could do both. And that feels really good for me. And so just to think about it, when this stuff is pulled in the right direction, that's giving information to the vagus nerve, and it might be telling my brain that I'm safe and that I'm okay. And that's resulting in me getting more saliva in my mouth. So when I get dry mouth, that is my fight or flight turning on. And I don't want to really be in those directions when I'm trying to get ready to perform, because probably I'm already going to be kind of heightened. Probably need to do something that's like going the other way. So before I went on stage, I might grab on and pull down and out on both sides because they both work for me. And I can again feel saliva immediately come into my mouth. I'll pull it the wrong way again so you can hear what happens. So that's now making my voice go a little high and a little shallow, and I actually feel my larynx raising, and I feel my constrictors turning on when I do that, and I pull this way. And that feels much better, and my heart rate's changing as I do it. So this stuff can be, it looks like subtle movements, but it can be very powerful with the stuff that we need to work on. And then what you can do is you can just, if you're sitting before you get up to sing, you can just drag it in your good direction. You can hold it there and breathe. If you have enough hair, you can even braid your hair. I have a trainer friend who braids her hair. She calls it neural braiding. So she braids her hair in the direction that she needs to pull it in. And that's very high payoff for her. So depending on your hairstyle needs, you could also do that as well, where you could actually pull it in some direction. So anywhere on your skull could do this, but if we're focusing on the vagus, we're focusing in the back of the skull for that. So the third thing that we need to think about is the area right under our skull. So the vagus, it leaves your brain at C1, which I'm going to turn so you can see it. It's this little hole right there. So C1 is your first cervical vertebrae. It is the only one that has no spinous process. That's the bumps that you feel on your back. It doesn't have one, so it's kind of like a little space you can feel in there. So before we do anything else, you're going to take both hands under there. You need to come right into this area. And once you've got that, you're going to dart your eyes around the room. And you should feel muscles going under there when you do this. So your vision is supposed to control your sub-occipital muscles, which is where we are right there. So on me this morning, what's happening is that my right side's fine, my left side's a little sleepy. So I'm just gonna tap on my left sub-occipital while I move my eyes around to go, hey, wake up. Wake up that connection. So when my vision moves, I'm supposed to be getting a responsive muscle back there. So we're going to take advantage of this eye connection to this area in this drill. So we're going to create a stretch in C1. So C1 is supposed to be not pushed this way because that starts to squeeze the posterior part of it. And that is what I see some of you do when you sing. I see postures that look sort of like this. And that starts to create a compression in C1, which is going to reduce your vagal output. You will not get as much vagus nerve information to your diaphragm, to your visceral organs, to your pelvic floor. That will be disturbed by that physical habit. So we're going to interlace our fingers. We're going to put them on the back of the head. I'm going to turn a little bit so you can see how much I'm moving. And I'm just going to go like this. It's really very small. I'm just tucking my chin down. But I feel a pool of saliva in my mouth immediately as I do this. And if you're finding this hard to find, you can lie on the floor and do this or go against a wall. So I got a wall here I'm just gonna show you. Sometimes this is a slightly hard thing for your arms to just maintain. So you can go like this, or imagine I'm lying on the ground. I can just do this on the floor like this. And once I've got that, I'm gonna come away again. So once I've got this position, I'm gonna check 5 things with my eyes. I'm gonna look to my left with just my eyeballs. And I'm getting dry mouth immediately when I do that. And you can hear my voice getting a little shallow. And if I look over to my right, now everything's immediately letting go. I'm getting saliva in my mouth. My larynx is dropping down. If I look up, dry mouth, I'm getting high larynx, constrictors turning on. I look down, immediately get saliva. Larynx is relaxing. And then we're gonna close our eyes. And for me, that's worse. I'm immediately getting dry mouth again. So how I'm going to use that information is the following way. If I'm singing and I'm trying to stay relaxed, like I'm finding the singing very stressful, if I was looking out in this room, I would just look 2 degrees below neutral for me. I'm not looking at the floor, I'm just looking down a little bit. I can feel my tailbone relax when I do that. I feel good in my larynx. If I were looking up, that feels tighter for me. Now that might not be bad because remember that we're singing in heightened circumstances and I don't want you to think that sympathetic nervous system is bad. It's not, it's what makes athletic movement possible, singing, dancing. However, if too much can be bad. So you need to test yourself to go, what's happening in this song? Do I need more activation or more relaxation? So I could test a phrase of singing, so if you care to find me, so if you care to find me. So it feels better when I go down. So I would probably choose for my alphabet to be looking down a little bit at that moment there. But that's something you need to test on your own voices to know what you need to do. And so when I look to my left, I got dry mouth. I look to my right, I got moisture. So I can again test that. So if you can, that's not gonna feel so good for me. So if you can, immediately better in my larynx. So I'm gonna endow in this room, this whiteboard over there as something in my story. That's gonna be part of how I'm gonna do defying gravity. It's gonna involve that. It's not gonna involve this so much because I'm in control of where I look. And so I can use my visual cues to talk to my vagus nerve because my vision is controlling my sub-occipital area, which again is where the vagus nerve leaves the brain. So what happens posturally here affects everything in your singing. And doing these simple tests and knowing yourself enough to go, where do I need to look to create a parasympathetic, a relaxation response is really important. It is my opinion that constriction in the throat is not conscious. So when you feel that, I'm tightening, I'm gripping. You're not doing it on purpose. Y'all know you're not supposed to be doing that. It's just because you're a human that has a nervous system and for some reason there's threat happening. And so to think about that, to go, if I knew where my eyes liked to be, I could craft a performance where when it's the easier parts of the song, don't worry about it. I could look up a little bit, it's not gonna kill me, but for the stuff where I need to really give it vocally, I probably need to go to the places where I'm a little stronger. So that is what the drill looks like this. Tuck, vision, that way. Once you've got the sense of how to do this, you don't actually need to use your hands. So if you were sitting somewhere, you could just go tuck like this and look, and I'm getting the same response without my hands. That's just to teach you where the stretch needs to be felt, but it does not require that. I can do it with just my eyes and just my neck position. So your vagus controls your autonomic nervous system, and that's the word for what I'm saying of fight or flight versus rest and digest, sympathetic, parasympathetic. The easiest way to shift your autonomics is breathing. So some of you have heard me do stuff like, or seen me do stuff like test you on inhale and exhale. So I'm gonna just show you how to use a paper bag for this. So bag breathing, you may have seen that like some old movie or TV show where they're like, you're having a panic attack, breathe into the bag. That's because carbon dioxide calms you down, and CO2, when that happens, talks to your insula in your brain, which is where the vagus is feeding into. So you can create autonomic change, like why am I freaking out? Why is my heart racing? Why am I pouring sweat? Just by having a paper bag like this. So how it needs to work is it needs to go vertically like this. You're gonna seal it over your mouth and your nose with your hands, and then you're gonna breathe in and out through your nose. So it looks like this. You get it on, seal, and breathe. Two to 3 minutes of that. If it starts to feel uncomfortable, you stop. If you're feeling great and you got it, what you want to do is inhale, exhale, pause. It looks like this. Etc. So I'm pausing on the exhale. I'm letting carbon dioxide be recirculated in this bag. So carbon dioxide leaves your lungs when you exhale. It also opens everything up in your body, including your brain. And so it can make you clearer thinking, it can reduce anxiety, it can increase flexibility. So my flexibility increases after I bag breathe. It can also just reduce global sympathetic tone through connections to the vagus nerve, because the vagus controls a portion of your diaphragm. So it's anytime you're working with breathing, you're also working with the vagus nerve. And the fifth vagus nerve thing is about where the nerve goes. So it goes from your brain stem, which is right in here, to your pelvic floor. It is your longest cranial nerve. Vagus means wanderer in Latin. Does not mean Las Vegas, which would be so much more fun. But it means the vagus nerve wanders through the entire body. And so there are a few key places that you can talk to it. And because it talks to your organs, it is better to work through the front of your body when you are trying to affect vagal tone than the back. So we're gonna start in the abdominal area. So there's 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll start in my upper left quadrant. So the stomach, esophagus is right here. So what I'm going to do is just take my hand on it like I did with the skull. I'm just gonna move it and see where it wants to move and doesn't want to move. So I have a long, complicated abdominal history on my left. So there's some places where it wants to move and where it doesn't want to move. Like it does not want me to press it down at all. So I'm gonna press down for a second and challenge this barrier in my skin a little bit. I'm gonna feel my saliva. And that's actually not bad. It's actually, I'm getting some saliva doing that. I'm gonna pull it up and away from that stuck thing. And that's not quite as good for me. It's a little bit drier. So I'm gonna push down again and just see what happens. I'm getting saliva now, so that's good for me. So then I would sing my scale pushing down. Ah, that's pretty good. I pulled it up. No, that's not going to be as good. I can already tell. So I can go through all my compass points, which means side to side, up and down, and diagonals on this quadrant, and be curious about places that are stuck. So I'm stuck down. I'm also stuck down and in. So I'm going to hold it down and in and see how that goes for my saliva. That's pretty good too. That feels even better for me. So that's along the line of my external obliques. It might be partly because of that, but it's also probably talking to my organs a little bit in this area. So that's my upper left. I would do my upper right the same way. I would go through the same exploration. And there's what's called a dermal level, which is like right under the skin. And it's called a fascial layer, which is like about a centimeter below that. And they feel a little different. And you can even push farther and push kind of hard again into the muscles and almost into the organs. So any of these quadrants we're doing, you can try all 3 of those layers to see if there's something that works for you. I've worked with some of you in ways that's very, very light, even with light touch like scratching, and that's been really good. And some people I've pressed on really, really hard, and that's been good. So you need to know yourself a little bit in that way. So that is the upper quadrant. This is the liver, by the way, on the right. And then we're gonna go into the lower quadrant, which is your guts, your small intestine, large intestine. So the large intestine goes kind of around like that. So you can just do the same stuff down here and be curious about the motions. So for me, I have an inguinal hernia, which means it's right here. So when I pull up, it's really sticky right here, but my saliva is loving that. So I could try singing, ah, and my breath went lower when I did that. I could feel expansion in the zone that I wasn't feeling before. And that's much better in my breath. If I push down, that's almost like borderline uncomfortable in the scar for me. And that's drying my mouth out. Let's see what my voice does. Yeah, it's not gonna work. So I also need to try my diagonals. So because I've worked with the scar, I kind of know a little bit about it. So when I pull out and up, like this way, that feels good. Ah, and I got air down there that I wasn't getting before. So on my right side, I have a lot less history over there, so there's just not really like that much going on over there. It's kind of all pretty equal. I could try pulling up and out and just see. Maybe a little drier, not major. Push down. Not really anything going on for me over there, so I'm gonna skip that one. And then this one is right above the pubic bone. So this is, when this is palpated by someone else, the hand goes this way, but because of the way human hands are, you can't do it like that on yourself. So you're gonna go that way, and you're gonna just check that area. So this is stuff like ovaries, uterus, genital stuff. It's all in this area. So I'm gonna pull that in the quadrants and see. So for me, pulling up is feeling really nice today. So I'm gonna just see what my saliva does with that. It's doing something. Oh, that felt good. I'll check the diagonal that I did on the other one, pull up and left. That's actually drying me out a little bit. I'm gonna switch hands just to see if I go up and right what happens. Probably better of the two. Oh, yeah, I got better fill down there doing that. So that's the abdominal area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 more to do. So we got our pecs. So if you reach across like this, I'm gonna do the same process over here. Where is it sticky? Mine's pretty okay over there. I might try just pulling it up and just see. Not much change for me. I'll go over on my left side. So more going on over here. It's a little stuck in, so I'll push into that. So this pushing in is called a barrier. I'm just pushing in, sort of challenging the barrier and see if it likes this or not. So in this one, it's actually not liking it. It liked it down here when I pushed into it. This one's kind of making me dry, so I'm gonna try spreading this one out. And that's now giving me the saliva again. So I can hold that. Oh, that feels good. And the last one is the sternum itself. So you can try it hand this way, you can try it hand this way. Both are worth playing around with. I'm gonna go this way because I feel that's a little better for me. So I can't go right and up, so I'm gonna hold that for a second and see what happens. Sort of middle, let me try spreading it out and see. And that's better, so that's giving me more. Oh, that feels great. So then, how I use this information is firstly, you're about to perform, you can do that. So if you've seen kinesio tape with me, you can tape it. So I'm kind of hairy, so I don't usually tape here unless I shave. But if you don't have a lot of hair here, you can actually tape onto it. But what I tend to do when I sing is I take these directions, and I kind of know what's going to happen, but some of those even surprised me today. Like I was trying to do it, just being curious with my own body. So like I might try this down one, which I don't normally do. And go, yeah, it actually is helping my diaphragm today to do that. So I could use that when I was warming up. And then the larger goal is what kind of movements would pull that way? So if I know, if I have to go this way, so what movement would pull me like that? So if I were to back bend a little bit, that might create a little bit of that stretch. If I knew that going that way was good for me, could my arm go this way for a big note? Could I play with that as part of my physical gesture of it? Could I create these stretches in my skin through some kind of physical movement? And those of you who love movement, you can be detectives with that and think about it and go, well, what would create that movement in me? And that's a great way to be creative in your own practice, to both talk to your vagus nerve, but also to let the embodiment of the song support what your nervous system is telling you, because we want that to be as good of information as possible coming through this particular nerve.